have a full day planned today, and it is all surrounding the campaign for grade level reading. Today is our official kickoff for the campaign for grade level reading, and we started it off with a poverty simulation. Many of the people here deal with our families and deal with our children in our community. And we are asking them to participate in this simulation so that they can have an idea about how our families live and the struggles that they go through. The campaign's goal is that all children will be reading by the time that they're in 3rd grade and be proficient. And Manatee County has chosen to focus on attendance for the first year of our campaign. And we wanted people to understand that there are many reasons why children and families do not get their children to school on time and do not go to school on different days. And a lot of those issues are surrounding poverty. So today we started by a poverty simulation. People are role-playing what it's like to be in a family and the struggles that they go through. This afternoon, we're going to pull it all together. We're going to debrief about the feelings they experience going through the simulation. And then we're going to talk about our campaign's goals. And our goal being that every day counts, that we want every child in school every day. And we're going to relate that back to their feelings during the poverty simulation and the struggles that they went through. And then we're going to tie it together by brainstorming. Now we know some of the reasons why children are not going to school. We've experienced it ourselves in the simulation this morning. What can we do to help break down those barriers so that our families get their children to school every day? We know we're not going to have all the answers today, but we're starting the dialogue, and that's what's important. Because as this campaign moves throughout our community, we want everybody to have a piece of it. So it may just be tweaking what we're doing and the outreach that we're doing to focus on attendance, but that's going to make a big difference for our families and our schools. At the end of the day, we want all the participants to understand that Manatee County is part of the Grade Level for Reading campaign. We want them to understand that attendance is important, and that's our first initiative, that we want every family to understand that every day counts, that children need to be in school every day. We want businesses, community members, and faith-based organizations to promote this message, because when children go to school every day, they're able to learn. And if they're able to learn, they're able to become productive citizens, which benefits us all. We'll have a stronger, healthier, happier community if we all participate in this campaign. So that's our goal today. We want everybody to leave and understand they have a piece of this initiative. It's a grassroots movement to improve our community, focusing on our children. How this simulation is laid out is there are different areas that the participants will have to go and visit. Some of the areas are regarding housing. They have to go there and figure out how to get a house and pay their rent. They also have to go to an area about utilities. We have an area set up for a school, because if you have children in the simulation, they have to go to school or they have to go to daycare while you're looking for work or while you are at work. We have a transportation area. We also have an area that's a pawn shop. So if you need additional funds, you can go over to the pawn shop and try to pawn some of the items you may have. We have a jail and a truancy center for children that are not acting appropriately, or if people are just not behaving appropriately, adults can go to the jail. So we have a police officer roaming through the scenario. We have the bank and we have the EBT center, and we also have social services where you can just go and have a question answered. So there are many different roles that are taking part in this scenario, and it's lifelike as much as we could make it so that we really experience the struggles our families have.
The poverty simulation today is really a springboard for the literacy campaign that is being hosted by the United Way and the Manatee County School District. The folks here today are hopefully having a gut level experience in what it's like to really live life on the edge. They are trying to feed their kids, pay their rent, get their kids to school, and hopefully read to them, because this is really what today is all about, literacy and on-level grade reading by grade 3. Our mission is really to solve the poverty issue in Manatee County. And as we partner with other agencies, really at the root cause, which is education. And education only happens when kids know how to read. So that's why we're so excited to be part of this event today. We are really the springboard to having kids be able to read by grade 3. The layout here is a number of family units of people living their day-to-day lives. Some of these family units are single-parent families. We have one family unit of just a little old lady. Some are two-parent homes with small children. Some are homes with teens. And they are all living their lives as we live our lives. However, they're living them with very limited resources and all the stressors that go along with living on the edge of poverty. We want the poverty simulation to really be in the back of everybody's mind and in their hearts when they realize some of the obstacles that our children come to school with every day. And you know, that will be what they'll be talking about, the process of getting kids on level in terms of grade, in terms of reading this afternoon.
I think it's a great opportunity to really look at our own school and see what we're doing in the community with parent involvement, meeting that whole child initiative, and just being able to sit here with community members and work with them and collaborate, as well as getting valuable information that we can use and take back to our own school.
Yes, I do, and it's exciting to be here. I mean, it's phenomenal to have all of these great thought leaders and school district leadership here, nonprofit partners. Invisible Men Academy bases its whole model on using the strengths in the community that already exist to deliver high-quality support programs, and our parent education initiative is delivered through some of the great partners that are here today, Jewish Family Services, the Women's Resource Center of Manatee. So for us, it's inspiring and invigorating to see the campaign here in Manatee. And to see all the amazing educators committed to helping every child not just reach grade level, but we at Visible Men Academy want them to go beyond grade level, both child and family. So we're excited to be here today.
I think really the biggest message is that it's not really one small issue when in dealing with students. There's a gamut of issues that are involved in making that whole child be successful, not only in elementary but middle and high school, and then giving them an opportunity to go to college. And so I think being able to really recognize that there's a lot of pieces that need to be put together in order to address those issues, I think coming here is a great opportunity to do that and see that work quickly.
Well, I just want people to know again that part of the simulation exercise was such a great reinforcement of learning about the social and emotional challenges that children and families living in poverty face, and those in the ALICE spectrum who are not living in severe poverty but are still really living on the edge. And so for us, we'll bring back to our team how important it is to be mindful of where a child's emotional state is when they enter the school building, and most importantly, how do we support the family and help them to see hope and optimism and shine, which is what we're all about. Yeah. To shine on.
Charles, I always think it's important to know the clients that you're working with and know what they're experiencing. But more importantly is, you know, we need to get closer to people that have issues so that we can help them as close as we can. Not living that life, not knowing that life, it's very important to know what's going on in our community. Well, we really hope that we are your university of choice for this community as far as working with community. We have students that do internships in our community agencies. We have our professors that help with research and help with problem solving with community-based agencies. And as a leadership team, we really hope that we are a community-based organization, and so that's what we strive to be, Charles. That's who we are. Through the leadership committee and through the steering committee, we have both the College of Education and our leadership team involved in helping steer the direction of the grade level reading program. And we really hope that USF can be the long-term partners with best practices. What's the best thing that's happening in our community that we can spotlight and what we can bring to our community? So a university should bring that to the table. I'm a 40-year-old head of household, a divorced male, and my daughter and son and granddaughter live with me. So it's a hard job. I work more than 40 hours a week. I make $10.75 an hour.
Well, I think the importance of this simulation in this type of situation is it causes people not just to think about what it might be like, but to really put themselves in the position of experiencing the challenges that come with poverty and managing all of the stressors that happen in a very real way. So I think it's brilliantly conceived. Well, education, I mean, we know that it opens doors, but what it really does is it causes young people to develop a sense of self-worth and self-confidence. And when we see in our students them grasping their potential and their ability to learn, we see that it feeds even more of a hunger, and it keeps them on track, and it keeps them connected to their future in ways that affect the decisions that they make on a daily basis. And when you multiply that over days and weeks and ultimately years, you have young people who feel confident in who they are and what they can achieve, who are making decisions to protect and preserve that future. And ultimately that spins back into enhanced experiences for families, communities, neighborhoods, and our entire community. So to me, education is such a building block for all of these other life experiences that we know are so critical. If people take away empathy, that to me is the most important thing, is not just sort of a kind of a distance understanding of what it's like to go through it, but really a deep empathy so that when we make decisions and when we support policies or don't support them, that we have a much clearer understanding of what we're saying yes to and what we're saying no to. So empathy, I think, is the most important thing.
As an employer, we need associates that have the ability to function and perform their jobs. And the same thing for our folks that are working for us, providing those services to our customers, that they have the education and the ability to take care of our customers, and to not only today, but become future leaders for our organization. Well, it's so important. If you walk in the shoes of a man, you have a better understanding of what that man or that person's life is all about. Today, we as a group get to experience what it's like not to have funds, or how to have a child that has issues at school or at home. And what a better way to have appreciation and an understanding than live a life, or live 3 weeks, as this example is giving us, 3 weeks in the life of that individual. Again, I feel very blessed to have the opportunity to work for such a great organization. That part of our foundation is being great stewards in our communities. And that starts with our founder. I mean, he really believed in giving back to our communities. And that's just part of our mission statements, being involved as responsible citizens in our communities. Makes it real easy when the foundation of our company, that's what we believe in. Continue to build synergy through synergy, we can solve a lot of problems. It's not just one agency or one person that can make a difference. If everybody comes together, great things can happen in Manatee County.
Well, to me, the main thing is this is a great example of different facets of the community coming together, specifically for something that's very important to education, and that's to make sure that our children are reading on grade level by the time they finish 3rd grade. And if we can get that accomplished for this county, it's going to make a huge impact in so many ways. So this is a very, very important day, I think, for Manatee County. I think that's the most exciting thing about being here today is you see the different organizations. You really see a community coming together to get behind an educational initiative that's going to make a difference. So it's important, I think, to have people from different backgrounds and different organizations that are coming together specifically to help our children, Well, first of all, we're a public school system, so we depend on the resources of our citizens and the help. Without the help of volunteers, without the help of business partners, there's no way we could accomplish what we need to accomplish for our students. And there's so many needs that need to be met. And the good thing is we live in a community that comes together for something like this and makes it important. I want to take away a sense that we're coming together for something that's going to make a difference, because a lot of times it's easy to get caught up in things that may be political or sidetracked by other issues, but the whole reason we have a school district is to improve the lives of our students, and what you're seeing today is an example of trying to do that. I'm 19 years old. I'm in a homeless situation. That's probably my kid crying right now. I have a 1-year-old who I got a Head Start pass to put in daycare, but I got to tell you, he's a 1-year-old, but he's more like 50 because he's a complete pain. But I was really happy to get him into Head Start so I could go do some other stuff. But I'm looking for a job right now, but things aren't looking very good.
Well, first of all, this is wonderful to get all of us together around the issue of the challenges of families that are living in poverty. So many of us don't experience that in our own lives. We don't know the statistics. We don't know what it's like. And this simulation is really giving us an example. Like, I'm a 16-year-old girl that's pregnant. My boyfriend, I don't know where he is, and I'm trying to look after my 2 little brothers at the same time. So this kind of simulation really lets you, for a moment, put yourself in the life of someone that's meeting a lot of challenges, and they're everyday challenges where transportation is a huge issue, and getting check cashed is a huge issue, and makes life difficult when you can't accomplish the little things without spending so much time and effort, let alone not having any money, That's true. It's how time-consuming it is. We were afraid that our dad skipped out on us, and how threatening that was to our little family that's already in a state of crisis. So, yes. Well, this simulation shows how important the support services are in a community. For the Community Foundation, that's part of the grant work that we do, is to provide the funding for some of these support services to sort of help life for the individuals that are being so challenged. So it's part of our core mission, the education that's involved. Our donors are concerned about the quality of life in this community, and that everyone here has an opportunity to succeed. Oh, education is the key. Education is the ticket out for our young people. We're in scholarship season right now at the Community Foundation, and we have been able to award some wonderful scholarships to some kids that all you can say is they are resilient. What they have accomplished in their life under difficult circumstances. We awarded one the other day to a young man who was homeless 4 years ago, and now he's graduating, great shape from high school, is going to get a scholarship to go to college. But he can read, he's educated, he graduated from high school. So grade level reading, that's the ticket to graduation. Graduation is the ticket to college, and college is their ticket onward and upward. I just want everyone here to go out and tell their friends, their associates, their family, how important it is for the community as a whole to pay attention to the education of our youngsters, the school readiness of our little ones, babies, early pre-K education, because if we don't get them started on the right foot, they don't read by 3rd grade, it's catastrophic. And we've got to improve our scores and improve the situation for our families.
Okay, I am 9-year-old Whitney Westcott. This is my 7-year-old brother,
William.
We live with our grandparents, but our grandmother, who is our primary breadwinner, left, but we still have been cashing her paychecks. And our grandfather, who's on disability, needs our help to get around to places. So I haven't been to school at all, and my little brother went for a week, and then I talked him out of that. So we've just been kind of running the streets with our grandfather. We're doing pretty good money-wise. It looks like our grandfather just was incarcerated for attempting to buy a firearm, it looks like. So now we're just out here on our own, and our house got robbed last week. We have paid our bills, but now we have a home with no parents or grandparents in it.
Well, I have ADHD, so I literally follow Whitney around town. We didn't eat for the first 2 weeks, but we did get food the second 2 weeks.
Yeah, by the way, the bank was always closed or running out of money. So when we would go to cash Grandma's paycheck, they never had any money. So, and the service was terrible too. The guy takes like 10 minutes to wait on one person, and the bank's only open for 15. The one thing I did not realize is the predatory nature of the businesses. The transportation industry overcharges us. The bank, as I said, has crappy service and high interest rates. It's very hard to get. I mean, we're just getting by already, but then when you have these predatory operations taking advantage of us, it makes it nearly impossible to survive.
With the amount of income coming into the home, it is virtually impossible to cover every area of the budget. We had to go without food for 2 weeks in order to survive. So though we have a little money left over, that was due to not eating for 2 weeks. So it's eye-opening to see the struggles of what someone goes through just on a daily basis to make sure that you have transportation to get to where you need to go.
Grandpa needs your Social Security card.
Oh, okay.
Well, obviously, attendance is the foundation of the educational program. In the case of our simulated family, we had one of our caretakers needed us to get around town, so we literally couldn't attend school because we had to survive, and so taking care of our basic needs took precedence over going to school. So we are, from a very early age, starting very far back, because we were trying to take care of our basic survival.
I certainly see the need for community involvement. Moving forward, there's a lot of programs that people aren't aware of that help not only with the educational aspect of it, but literally with your leadership and community involvement to reach out to families locally and get involved to help them, whether it be financially or with the school aspect, with the reading, and trying to get them to the level that they should be at.
I think the takeaway here is that it takes everybody. It takes the schools, it takes the government organizations, it takes our community service organizations, our nonprofits. Not one of those components is going to solve this problem. It requires everyone in this community, the foundations, the universities, to help these people survive.
Poverty in our district. We have a lot of poverty in our community, and this impacts all community members, but especially the smaller children. Early learning is what my expertise lies in, and we care about starting early, building a strong foundation, learning how our citizens live, how we can support our parents and families, increase family engagement, all of those things. So this helps us learn about how other people live and what we can do to support to make our community a better place. Well, one of the initiatives that Dr. Green started when she was deputy superintendent was all Title I schools, which are schools that have a high percentage of students on free and reduced lunch. All Title I schools get free pre-K in the afternoon. So they have VPK provided by the state in the morning, and then the school district pays for all the instruction in the afternoon, so that our children living in high poverty get an all-day pre-K for free. Research shows that building a strong foundation early in a high-quality instructional arena increases the chances for success later in life. It increases the chances for proficiency of grade-level reading by 3rd grade. So we do believe that our classrooms are the definition of high-quality instruction, and we believe that we're building the strongest foundation possible for our pre-K students to get them ready for kindergarten and success K through 12. Well, the school district can't do it by itself. We need all of our families and parents and community agencies. The Manatee Community Action Agency has our Head Start children. The Early Learning Coalition oversees many private providers, so it's not just the school district. It is a community-wide effort, and thank goodness for the United Way, Manatee Community Foundation, USF, and the school district pulling together as leads in the grade-level reading campaign. Well, we know that students who are proficient by the end of 3rd grade have a much better chance for success K through 12 and post-secondary. So for our community to join hands and contribute and work toward this effort together, it'll make our community an even better place, and all of our children will be successful in their future jobs or college. I think that the only reason people aren't currently contributing to this effort is they don't know about it. So my hope is to build awareness, to increase the engagement of the community and making the success, the grade level reading campaign successful, and to make it a community-wide effort, because I do believe that we can increase the proficiency of our readers with everyone's help.
Well, I think the beauty of this event is it points out the complexity that many people in our community face with regard to not having enough resources. It's not simply an issue of not having a job. It's not simply an issue of kids' reading success. The truth is, life is a complex environment, and when people don't have enough resources, their lives get very difficult. The other thing I think that's important here is that we live in a community that has wealth, has middle class, and frankly it has people who don't have much, and we don't do a great job of understanding the dimensions of that in a rich way. I think this pointed out some of the issues here and how complex they are. solutions to complex problems are going to be complex solutions. So, as I just said, the environment of being a family or a system of a low income is that it's not one thing. So the response needs to be multidimensional. It needs to be involving government, the private sector, and the nonprofit sector. Now, that in and of itself creates a challenge because, to be honest with you, it demands that these systems work effectively together. That's not easy. The other thing I would say is that this is not so much an issue of charity. This really is us thinking along two parallel paths. One is there are individuals who are in crisis, so there needs to be some attention paid. But the other one is these are systems problems, and what I mean by that is that people who don't have much money, they have systems working against them. So we need to figure out how to change those systems. That can only happen across multiple sectors: private sector, nonprofit sector, and government sector. Well, clearly none of us really have a perfect understanding because we were in a simulation. We knew that in a handful of hours we were returning to a situation where we aren't living in poverty. But I think that what the simulation pointed out is that time and other things we take for granted when one has money, we take these things for granted, like transportation and actually being able to negotiate how to get from one place to the other and how to negotiate systems that are overtaxed. We take those things for granted, and this helped with that, I think. Well, again, I do think that we're going to learn more about this afternoon, but it's clear that the success of a child in school is not a function of just how well the school system is performing. The success of a child in school has to do with the economics of the family system. It has to do with the fairness of the justice system. It has to do with the capacity of a community to have effective transportation systems. So I think that what we're going to be talking about today is that there are multiple things that impact whether a child is ready to read when they enter school and how successful they are at each of the grade levels. In this case, we're talking about third grade level.
What we'd like to do is get your feedback about what you were experiencing. So I'm going to just kind of throw out the question of what happened to your family and what did it feel like for you? What were some of the challenges you had? What were some of the triumphs you may have had? And again, remember, today is all about early literacy. Think about the dynamic of your family and how you were or were not able to fit into your day, reading to your child, talking to your child, throwing out those vocabulary words that's going to give your child an edge when that kindergarten bell rings. So with that being said, who's up first? Oh, don't do that to me. Come on up.
I was frustrated. I wanted to get a gun and go visit the bank that kept closing, or the ready cash place that kept closing, or the mortgage place that kept closing. Because I had 2.5 paychecks in my purse and nobody would cash them. Been there, done that, had the t-shirts because I was one of those kids.
I was not prepared to come here this morning and be an 85-year-old woman with arthritis. I managed because I'm 85 with no children, thank God, and I didn't have the frustration of the children. But with the arthritis and the transportation and the buzzer or bell, whatever that thing was, it kept going off right as I'm talking to someone, that frustrated me more than anything. I did manage to get kicked out of the homeless shelter, but I did have enough money to get housing, but there was no housing available. So I ended up with, minus the housing, at least $5.
Good morning, everybody. In the simulation, I was a 9-year-old girl, and I lived with my, and I rocked it. And I lived with my disabled grandfather. Unfortunately, our grandmother, because my mother is in jail and my father is gone, our grandmother, who was the primary breadwinner, left at the beginning of the simulation. So I actually never went to school at all during the simulation because I had to help my disabled grandfather get around town to pay our bills and buy food and so forth, and then we had to always wait in line, and we were always stressed out because the whistle was always about to ring. And so school was an afterthought because me and my grandfather were out taking care of our basic needs. So education and reading was not even on my radar during the simulation because we had our household to take, which our household got robbed, by the way, during the simulation. So as far as reading, I am going to be one of those kids who will always be behind and always in that cycle of poverty.
How many of you did something that you were not proud of? And if you would like to speak to that, we would like to hear about that.
I think I was a pretty good boy. I was 1 year old. My mom took me to the daycare center and left me there. Me and a 3-year-old ran away, and we wound up in the police department. And we didn't like it there, so we just stood there and cried all day.
I was a 40-year-old single-parent male with a 20-year-old daughter, a 9-year-old son, and a 1-year-old grandson in one household, and we were stressed. And some folks that were with disabilities tried to move in with us, and we couldn't make that happen. I felt bad about that, but it felt like they were scamming us, so we kind of made a family decision not to do that. But the worst thing I did is I got a utility voucher, and I changed the amount on it to $200 instead of $25, and they cashed it. So, I did repent to my family, and we did go to church and talk about it. So.
I thought it was interesting that, like, we did everything right. Like, I was a problem child, but I got a work-study program and, like, went to work, and our little sister, like, she went to school every day, and Dad had left and only left us with $10. So she was, like, trying to go everywhere, and we were, like, such good problem solvers, but still nothing. I tried, like, the drug thing, and nothing worked at all because of lines or not having bus passes. It was just a dead end everywhere.
I had the good fortune of doing this simulation once before, so I took my learnings from that and applied it to today, and because I failed miserably the first time, one of the things that really came through to me, and I was in the same family, I was Dennis's daughter, was that while we were able to survive the month financially and pay our bills, we were able to do all that. What we were not able to do was the consequences were that our children and his son were put to the side. Our daughter did not go to school. We got nailed at daycare, so the chances of our children getting out of this were greatly reduced. So they were the price we paid for being able to survive.
You know, I think that as a Head Start program through Manatee Community Action Agency, I know sometimes the staff gets so frustrated and maybe a little angry when parents aren't fully engaged. That's part of the Head Start model. We want parents to, you know, be part of the program and part of their child's education. And when they're not, for educators, that's so frustrating. And I know many of you in the audience are educators, and you're dealing with this every single day in your classrooms. And now's a good time to kind of stop and think of when that parent is dropping that child off, where is the parent going with the rest of his day or her day? Where did they come from? When the child arrives, did the child have breakfast? Did anybody talk to the child? Did the child have to get dressed by him or herself? There's so many things that go into living on the edge that we forget about when we arrive at our jobs. So it's just kind of something to hopefully be a little more empathetic toward families that are living on the edge. How many of you were able to successfully pay all your bills, you met all your responsibilities, you had no problems? 1, 2, so maybe 15% of you, 20% of you? How many of you lost employment? Can you come up and tell us why you lost your job?
I lost my job because I was at the Social Security's office trying to secure housing and couldn't make it to work in time. So that was my frustration, not being able to secure housing and then losing my job, so I couldn't afford housing. So.
This one? Okay. I had a good job in a hospital, and but I lost my job because I did not have transportation. And then when I tried to go get help to get transportation so I could get to my job, I went to one agency first, and then I was told as we were talking, I was talking to people in line, I had to go, I needed money to get a transportation vouchers. And so I went to pawn something to get money so I could get transportation vouchers, and I was bounced from agency to agency to agency to try and figure out how do I just get a transportation voucher. And I really felt the frustration of what what families must go through when one agency, when all agencies don't tell families the exact same message. It was really enlightening.
Do you think that's a real life event? Do you think that really happens? Do you think agencies only have, their own little niche? And so families come to one agency and they go from this agency to that agency because one takes care of utilities, the other will help you with the rent, maybe, if they have money this month. So that's a real frustration. That's a tremendous frustration for families. I want to hear from some of the staffers, because on the other side of the table, somebody comes at you and they're asking and they're asking and they're asking and they're asking, and sometimes they may even cheat on their application. Did anybody fill out their applications incorrectly? Nobody? I cannot believe that. Okay, we see a little bit. If you have an application, you might have fudged your income or the household size, because that's the only way you could get services. But Anna, do you want to talk about some of you were quick cash? Linda,
This was my first time working Quick Cash, and I had a nice somebody from United Way helping me, and she even said, we feel bad, you know, for the things that we were doing to people, charging them extra, closing down, but that's the reality of it. You know, that happens to people every day. Even at the agency I work for, when some of the other staff are out doing agency, what is it called? Outreach. I answer the phone, and I feel bad, like listening to everybody call and needing help, and you know, this is reality for too many people, and you guys got a little bit of taste of what it really feels like for individuals that we work with every day to have to call 1,000,000 times to get an answer, to have to come to different appointments, to miss work and lose their job because they're trying to do something that they have to do to even survive. So, and you know, prioritizing and stuff like that. He paid $25 one time, and then he came back and he had a little bit of extra money, and he paid a little bit more. And you know, we often don't realize that paying those bills that makes our families proud. Going to work, having that self-sufficiency, that's the #1 self-esteem booster for them, even though we often they push aside their kids and everything else like that, but we can't look at that as a downfall for them. We have to look at it as they're doing everything they can for their family, and what else can we do to make sure that they have what they need for their family. So.
Could we hear from the Kim Ross? You are with the Foodorama. And I want to know how many families actually were able to feed their families every week. Did they come and buy the food that they needed to buy? How many children were neglected in terms of those basic needs? So if you want to come over and talk about, and who your partner with you as well.
It was overwhelming, absolutely. I would never work retail in a million years. But I think we saw a lot of families that just didn't get the food purchases that they were required to do, so they would try to backtrack the second week coming in. A lot of families, you know, came in first off and thought maybe it would be easier just to go ahead and purchase ahead for the month, and then you'd have a few folks come back and, you know, try to get an additional week added on, so we would have to, based on our records, make sure that they were up to date.
Yeah, crazy. When the families come with the vouchers, it was crazy for us to try to make all the calculations and have the line and people yelling, and it was kind of like overwhelming for us. And I know it was a simulation, but I was feeling bad telling people, I cannot help you, you have to come next week. It was kind of crazy.
When it closed, I actually had one family or one client overpaid, so I kept 20 and put it to the back of my envelope. And we had 2 children come into the store that were unaccompanied, and they couldn't find their mother, so I gave them the 20. I just couldn't help myself, and then I had to call the police because we couldn't find their mother anywhere. So that was kind of, you know, like a futile effort there, but I could see, to me, that represented the Band-Aid approach for a quick fix, thinking that maybe that would help that quick situation, but in the long term, it wasn't a solution. So it was, and we tried to send out the health alerts. I don't think we actually reported anyone for not buying food, but we tried to send the alerts out.
I think basically that was it. It was like more than half of the families that didn't buy the food that was required for the whole month. Right. So those kids were starving. It was maybe other priorities in the household, but it was a bunch of families that didn't buy what they're supposed to buy for the whole month.
If you were a child in the simulation, what did you think about your parents' ability to take care of you? Did it scare you? Was it a concern to you? What did you think? What did you feel? Pam, you want to talk about your experience as a 13-year-old?
Our family was a little bit different. Mom had disappeared quite a while ago, didn't pay any child support. Dad had just been incarcerated for 45 days, so there was myself and another lady who were 13-year-old twins. We had a 3-year-old brother and a 21-year-old brother who was taking care of us and going to college at the same time. We couldn't get anywhere. We'd stand in line. We paid for 1 week of food. Now, I do have to say that it said that our rent was paid, but we were evicted anyway. That has to be very frustrating because you can be evicted for any reason under our laws. And so we questioned it and said, well, we can't do anything about it. Let's go forward. Let's try something else. The 4th week, I couldn't go back to school because the 3rd week, when we were out of school, I was shut out of the bank. They closed down before we got to get my prize money, which our family needed because we hadn't had any food. So we had 1 week of food. It was very frustrating. Standing in line, not being able to go to school. I would have been one of those kids with attendance problems. We were talking about some illicit dealings that we were going to do outside of school to try to earn some money, but just to help our family, even to get through until Dad could get back. So it was an eye-opener.
I was cast as a 1-year-old child. I don't know if my people bought any food at the store or not, but through the whole event, I was not offered any. So I suppose I starved to death. Thank you.
I was a 9-year-old child, and I had a 1-year-old niece, and due to the 20-year-old mom, which was my sister, she was trying to go to college as a full-time student, and my father was trying to work, and it was very difficult for my father to get to the bank and get to work, and when he did get to the bank, they would only cash 2 of his 3 checks, so it caused a money shortage, and then when he went over to the little quickie cash place, they would only cash 1 of his 2 checks. And the way we budgeted our money, we were able to have enough funds for the month, but we couldn't get our funds together for me to go to school because as a 9-year-old, I couldn't drop my niece off at the daycare. So I missed school because Dad was at work and the mother was at school or paying bills, so it made it very difficult for us. And we see that a lot where the siblings are left to take care of the younger ones due to lack of transportation or because somebody's working. And I never got to go to school because I had to take care of this 1-year-old child. And that is a reality of our students, that they miss a lot of school because they're interpreting for a parent at a sibling school or class, or merely because there's just a transportation issue. If mom doesn't go to work, the family doesn't eat. So they're drawn between this. Does mom go to work and leave the sibling home to take care of the child so they have food and a roof? Or does the child go to school and the mom doesn't work? So it's a very difficult situation.
I was a 10-year-old boy named Bart, and my folks were pretty freaked out and very busy, and they never listened to me. And she was 13 and mean to me, made fun of my name, and the teachers didn't pay any attention to the work I did, and I know that because I wrote boogers on the homework, and they never checked. And then I got kicked out of school, and then it was kind of fun because I walked around and I made sure I knew where the cop was, and I went the other way.
I was a 1-year-old child. I tried to act like a 1-year-old child. I think I irritated my dear mother to pieces because he actually referred to me as the idiot child at one point. But my buddy and I did run away from the child care, and we got arrested. And that was kind of fun. We were bored. Nobody was watching. The last week I was kidnapped by someone trying to sell me as a child. Even though I was 1 and I didn't understand everything going on, here's what I sensed. I sensed the frustration from my mom and her boyfriend because they couldn't cash checks and they couldn't find jobs, and there was that tension. And I sensed their hopeless feeling because they just couldn't get anything together. So even though I think as a little kid I wouldn't have understood, I sensed those things, and that irritated me, and I cried more, and I know that probably added to their frustration. So even though I was a baby, I think it just all affected the way I felt because I was reading their emotions. Be nice, Mom.
I feel like I have to defend myself because I was his mom, but you have to realize he was a really rotten kid. Everywhere I took him, he got in trouble. But no, what he said was correct. It was really frustrating. Everywhere we went, it was one obstacle after another. And when we would get back at the end of a week, we just couldn't, even though we had made some progress, we still had obstacles that we just couldn't overcome. And the only way we got through was, and we got thrown out of a homeless shelter after the second week. We met an 85-year-old man who took us in. He was doing pretty good, actually, but he took us in. And so it lets you know that in these kind of situations, sometimes you really are dependent on the generosity of others. And the only other thing I'd say is, as we went around to the different agencies, we really sensed not just our frustration, but the frustration of the people that were trying to deal with us. So that was interesting.
I think just on a very small level, you can sense children growing up in families who have parents who are struggling with low income and all the things that go along with it, and their view of their family and their view of their parents as they grow up in that environment, not maybe understanding why it is that they're hungry and not understanding the challenges. They aren't equipped to do that at the younger age. So it becomes very, very frustrating. And again, in school and child care centers, all that, you see it and you feel it. And it's so much, just as he said, it's a feeling. It's a gut level feeling. I hope some of y'all felt that gut level frustration, whether you were a child or not. One of the things I wanted to ask is how many school age children attended school the whole time? Or how many didn't attend school? That would be a better. Now look at that. Today we're going to be talking further about grade level reading and specifically attendance, and where the damaging effect of the lack of attendance at school, of what it has to do in the long-term impact of the child's education. In the ones that were in child care that did not escape, that spent a little bit of time there, was it a good environment for you? Was it full of language? Was it full of interactions with adults? Did you feel secure and safe? Can anybody answer to the child care experience? Because the birth to 3, so critical for language development, brain development in terms of what's going to happen in 3rd grade. So what was your experience there? Did you have quality experiences in the early years?
Good morning. I was one. I had very loving parents. My dad was actually not my father. He was my mom's boyfriend. She was 19. But back to the original comment about literacy, the only time that I got that was when I went to child care, and they tried to do interactive things with me. But my parents were too busy jumping, trying to find a place to live. We were kicked out of the shelter as well. He was trying to work, lost his job. So there was just so many other frustrations going on that even though they loved me and were nice parents, they just didn't have time to focus on those areas.
I think we would like to hear from the head of households now. If you could come up and talk a little bit about what it felt like to be responsible for that family unit and some of the things that were challenges for you.
I think all of us experience the frustration at various levels. As head of household and having been like a college graduate and recently laid off, I think I sort of extrapolated that to my current situation. And I'm accustomed to being able to get things done and be somewhat efficient when I need to get things done, be in control of your situation. So the loss of control probably for a person in the situation that this father would have been in was probably going to be the most difficult thing to deal with. Did have a wife who was very, very efficient, because I was laid off and the wife was working, but somehow managed to get things done even after work while I was still staying in lines and not being able to get much done. So I can't imagine what that might have been like with a single head of household, someone who didn't have someone else to kind of plan with and work with. So must have been very frustrating for someone who didn't have that help. But was still very frustrating not to be able to get things done.
I probably had a mental health disability and it had not been diagnosed. But I know I probably needed anger management, and I didn't have that either. But I was a mother of a 14-year-old girl and a 17-year-old boy who had gotten someone pregnant, and he didn't know whether the baby was his or not. I had a husband who had just left me. He left me with these 2 kids, no food, no income. I'd not worked ever before, so I was struggling trying to figure out exactly what I needed to do, where I needed to go, and I carried my attitude with me because I was pissed for a lot of reasons. So when my daughter would leave school, she would come and try and rescue me because she knew I had a bad attitude. And I was in line at social services where I really needed to be to get services for my family, and I gave that lady an attitude. So we were going to fight. I just could not win for losing because of my bad attitude. And now I'm going to wonder if my daughter is going to have the same attitude when she goes to school.
I was a 52-year-old grandfather who was disabled, and luckily the grandmother worked, and we had a 9 and a 7-year-old. And I'll say my biggest takeaway was seeing how much the kids had to grow up quickly, and how much I relied on that 9-year-old to really take care of the 7-year-old and to take care of filling out forms for social services and other things that I needed, and how much time she didn't have to really focus on being a kid even. So it was just really hard to see that. I was actually one of those kids. And so seeing that you have to grow up quickly and seeing what toll that takes on them was really hard. So.
Okay. I was a mother of 3, and my husband had recently been laid off. He was a computer programmer and still couldn't get another job. And I had a job, and our oldest daughter was 16 and pregnant and due in 2 weeks. And then we had an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old. And again, I just mentioned the frustration of trying to get to work and not having transportation, but it was that feeling of helplessness. And we had been a typical middle-class family, so that just wasn't even, I think, on our radar, to say, gee, I'm going to need to access different types of services, and I was clueless of where do we start. And so that was that, again, that feeling of helplessness was really powerful.
I was the father. I had a teenage daughter who was pretty self-sufficient, and a wife who could do things, but the transportation business, because somebody stole my car. And my mother-in-law, who's disabled, would have to take me to work and pay for a pass, and I had to give them 5 passes. And sometimes we didn't have 5 passes. Even when you begged them from social services over there in the corner, by the time you gave out the passes to who needed to go where, it was like they were gone. And I couldn't even get to the bank. And I had 2 paychecks and a bonus check, and they closed. And these people have never heard of direct deposit.
Just a couple of questions. How many people paid their rent on time? How many families? How many people kept their utilities on? How many did not? How many were homeless? How many had their houses turned over, their chairs turned over, and they became homeless? That's kind of frightening. The luck of the draw cards. Did anybody have extra burden because of those cards? Yes. What kind of burdens did you have? You can just shout out. You don't have to come up here. What kind of burden did you end up with? Stolen car? Oh, wow. So no transportation. That really puts a kibosh into things. What else? No food. No food. What was that? Dental bills. Those things crop up. Oh my goodness. Did anybody have an experience with our illegal person? I know one of you did because we observed her snatching somebody's Social Security card. They didn't know it. She was good. She was really good. She ended up with a whole wad of cash. It could be. Yes, she did kidnap you. So we had, what, slave labor or human trafficking going on? Was anybody approached to sell drugs? In past simulations, it's been amazing because some of the individuals have said, I cannot believe that I made that decision. I cannot believe that I allowed my kids to sell drugs so that we could pay the rent. And it happened. She could not believe that she allowed that to happen, but it did. So your choices, when you're faced with that, in terms of keeping a roof over your head and meeting the basic needs, it's not so black and white. It is easy to pay your bills when you have money. It just works really, really well. But when you don't, it makes life so much more complicated. I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up, and Barber will end it.
We have one more question we'd like to throw out. What was your attitude when you came in this morning? And are you feeling differently now? And can you speak to that?
I'm a pastor in the area. We partner with Orange Ridge Bullock Elementary School, and that's why we're here. We'd been invited. My attitude was I wasn't real sure what was happening. I thought we were going to be sitting in rows learning classroom kinds of stuff. But I think there's three big takeaways for me. My wife is here with me also. First of all, on a personal level, I think we have a better understanding of what people in our county are dealing with and all the frustrations that they're going through day to day. Secondly, our son is the director of Manatee Religious Services, and he's one of those organizations trying to help people get help when there's no money. And I think I sense maybe some of his frustration now because you're trying to help someone and you don't have the resources. But thirdly, it ties back into the school. Our purpose we try to empower Orange Ridge the best we can so they can do their job and they can help the kids. And what today's done is caused me to want to empower our school, Orange Ridge Bullock Elementary, even more so that they can accomplish what they need to do. This lets me see a little bit more about they're up against and the people, the families that they help. So thank you. It's been a real honor, and we have a big takeaway for us personally.
This morning, the church, to give us this space, had actually moved the feeding of the homeless outside. So when you came in this morning and you were walking in, did you notice children playing on the playground? And did you notice families lined up for breakfast? Somebody had come to me and had asked if we had staged that as part of the simulation. And that's life. That's our community that was out there. How many of us walked by and didn't even notice? So as we take on these roles, we have to realize that our community is living with this day in and day out. When I had participated in the poverty simulation, my blood pressure, I could feel it rising as the weeks went on. And my blood pressure is usually very, very low. But going through the scenarios caused me so much anxiety. I could feel bodily changes taking place. I could feel my heart beating rapidly. I could feel my mouth getting dry. I could feel myself in the anxiety trying to run from one place to another. So when we're in our communities and we're in our schools and when we're in our agencies, we have to remember that that family comes with a story. And we have to be remembering to be observant as we're going through our community, because those are our families. They're the ones that we're doing outreach to.
Not only is this our community, but in my case, I've discovered it to be a little bit of my family. I have a granddaughter who could very well be one of the characters in this simulation. She lives over 1,000 miles away, so physically distant, and their family has chosen to be emotionally distant, so we have not been in very close touch. But I've discovered over the last recent year that she dropped out of high school. She has 2 children by 2 different fathers. She lives at home with her mother, who is divorced from my son. She has no job and has no real ambition to get a job because mom takes care of her and mom helps her take care of the babies. And so when I learned all this, I said, being a fixer type, well, I'll pay for you to get your GED. I'll pay for you to go to some school. I don't care where you want to go. If you want to go to Yale, we'll find a way. If you want to go to cosmetology school, we'll find a way. And she essentially said, for what? And there was no desire to try harder. And I think a lot of us in this room found it difficult to do this simulation because we wanted to fix things. We wanted to pay that rent. We wanted to get food for the family. And what I've discovered is there is someone very dear to me who doesn't have that drive and who I have been a bit judgmental about. And now maybe I need to look at a little differently and see if there's a way that I can help, because by the way, she's got these 2 little babies that are going to be part of this educational issue that I don't know whether they're being read to. So I thank you for this.
I know we have several principals here today, and I was wondering if you would be kind enough to come up and just talk from the heart about what this may mean for your school next year.
My name is James Horn. I'm principal of Able Elementary. It's a Title I school. And we are so fortunate that we were going to be able to hire basically social workers. They're going to be called graduation enhancement technicians. And the applicant that I've talked to was talking about all these services, and it was very foreign to me, and it's become very real now. And to have someone who's going to be on our campus working with our students to help our families deal with all this, we may need 2, but no, it's wonderful that we have that wonderful resource. I want to thank the Title I department who's providing this for us, because this is going to make a huge difference, and I'm very happy for that. So.
My name is Joel Erby. I'm the newly hired principal of Visible Man Academy in Bradenton. We're an all-boys school that deals with minorities primarily. One of the things in self-reflecting, as a principal, you always try to self-identify with the students who are in your population. And one of the things that I noticed here was a lot of self-identification for myself, because as a person from the inner city of Detroit, Michigan, I dealt with a lot of these issues personally. And so coming from a single mother and an only child, dealing with a lot of underlying issues that come with being in these type of situations, it's really self-reflective to understand the type of population that I have at our school, and to really be sensitive to their needs, not only for the students, but also dealing with the parents as well, to help them be able to kind of get through the everyday nuances of everyday living. And so I think that one of the most important things as a principal for me is to make sure and ensure that our children at the school have the best opportunities that we can provide, and that we are dedicated to not only the cause of the children in the school, but also the parents and the community. So I'm very appreciative of having this opportunity, so thank you.
I worked with Turning Points for about 4 years as a AmeriCorps Vista volunteer. And for those of you who don't know what Turning Points is, it's a day center for the homeless and those at risk of being homeless. And every year, some of you here have been involved with that, we put out a, Kim, what do we call it, the 211 booklet? We put out a booklet that has the names, phone numbers, of all the organizations who help the homeless in Manatee County and Sarasota County, including veterans. And this homeless booklet is available to all the schools. It's a great place to go to find out where to help these people. So you can go to Turning Points, which is located on 17th Avenue, or the One Stop Center, to get this booklet, and it's available to everyone. It also goes out to the police department and the sheriff's department, who hand out these booklets.
It would be wonderful to hear from a couple of classroom teachers, because you are the line of first defense, so to speak. You are the person that our kids walk into every day. And if someone can, or a couple of you can come up and share your thoughts about how you're going to start this next school year.
Hello. I guess I'm the only teacher here. So, I first want to say that I was the head of household and I failed miserably. We did not have a house. We did not pay any bills. We did not have any food. I did make my 14-year-old daughter go to school and told her to stay there. I didn't let her take drugs. I think she turned those down. So it was very stressful. So initially I was thinking, well, you know, I'm just going to tell parents. They have to do what I say. So get those kids moving. But now I realize that's not going to be helpful. They have enough stress in their life that I'm going to have to approach it very differently. And the kids are probably already going to feel stressed when they come to me. So I think understanding a different approach, that the parents are already stressed, they have somewhere to go, they have things to do or jobs to get to, that we're going to have to work together. And I'm going to have to be a lot more understanding than initially I was planning on. But it'll be good, and this was a great opportunity. Thank you.
While I am not a classroom teacher in the schools, I do work with the Early Learning Coalition that has a lot of contracts out there with not only the early childhood providers in the community, but also the public schools with their early learning programs, and Head Start with their early learning programs. And it seems to me that when the charge of the person in the classroom, whether it's birth or clear up through the end of high school, the charge of that person in the classroom is to welcome that child in, establish a relationship. But as I was sitting here thinking about it, many of the folks in the early childhood arena especially are those folks on the edge, having to leave all of their on-the-edge frustrations and stresses at the door to now welcome the children who are on the edge in other families. And I think that this is something we need to think about as a community, and how can we help those providers who maxing out at $10 an hour to take care of the children and get them ready to be ready for school. So we need to think about this. This is a major piece that contributes, I believe, to the lack of readiness in third grade.
Well, I want to thank you for your good spirit and your enthusiasm in participating in this simulation. You all did a great job, and I feel that it was successful in serving as a springboard into the rest of the afternoon. Thank you all for coming and for participating. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
You did it. Thank you very much. You all made it through. Everybody looks like they're still healthy and good and ready for the afternoon. There might be some hungry folks out there, and we are going to take care of that in just a few minutes. Wanted to take just a moment to introduce one of our partners around the Campaign for Grade Level Reading in Manatee County. That's the Manatee Community Foundation, and Marilyn Howard, who is the executive director. She's going to talk a little bit about why they consider this an important partnership and give you some directives for the afternoon. So thank you for your patience, and before I leave, I wanted to say thank you very much to Manatee Community Action Agency, to their staff, to the volunteers that took time out of their lives to learn and train to be able to work through this for us, and thank you to each one of you for showing up and for going through it today. Thank you.
Thank you, Bronwyn. Just a comment about the simulation. The next time we're sitting at a table looking at grant applications, I know that our group will be looking at them with a little bit different eye. The next time I see applications for bus passes, the next time I see applications for support for Manatee Community Action Agency and some of the wonderful services they provide. I know a lot of you in here today are representatives and staff of the nonprofits. For the rest of you, I do want to say I thank all of these people. We have some wonderful nonprofits in this community that really work so hard to address a lot of these issues in our community, and we're very lucky to have the level of people that we do that are really focused on these issues. I would also like to say sometimes we sit here and this gets very overwhelming. I mean, I was a 16-year-old pregnant girl in my family and didn't have quite the responsibility that the parents had, but I could see their stress level rising throughout the entire simulation. And we sometimes get overwhelmed that these issues are so large and how can we help? But by being here today, you're helping. By participating in the Campaign for Grade Level Reading, you will be helping. I will throw out one other thought, just a little commercial. Later on in the year, around November every year, the community foundations do a campaign in Manatee, Sarasota, Charlotte, and DeSoto County, and it's called the Season of Sharing. I hope you've heard of that. And it's community sponsored. It's just donations from the public that go into this fund called the Season of Sharing Fund, and that fund ends up being distributed in Manatee County to the Manatee Community Action Agency and to Turning Points as our two fiscal agents. And that's all emergency assistance, one-time emergency assistance funds for the very type of families that we were all portraying here today. So when you see that campaign roll around, if you can send a little some dollars that way, that's where it ends up for that one-time emergency assistance. And boy, after today, you know, to get help with a rent payment for a month, that would make a difference. To get help with your car, that would make a difference. So just a thought, remember Season of Sharing later on in the year. Campaign for Grade Level Reading. Why are we participating? You know, you hear that saying, it takes a village. Well, the Campaign for Grade Level Reading is so much larger than just teaching kids to read. It is about their families, it's about school readiness, it's about just all these issues that we were dealing with here in the simulation. And it does take a village, and it takes a lot of partnerships, and we are thrilled to be part of this group and and with the United Way and USF Sarasota and the school district and the Early Learning Coalition and the Education Foundation, and we truly are trying to bring the resources of the entire community to focus on this really important issue of kids being able to read. And the business community is going to be stepping forward, and I think in Manatee County, we are really going to make a difference. I was telling someone earlier today that at the foundation right now, we're in scholarship season. And I do want to say the thing that I admire, and I think a lot of the teachers and the principals see, kids are resilient. And some of these young people that we are awarding scholarships to right now, we see their stories and we just are in awe that these kids are applying and are going to be able to go to college. I mean, one of the young men that we awarded a scholarship to just the other day, 4 years ago was homeless and living with his mother out of the car. But he can read. So I want to take it back to grade level reading. He graduated from high school. That's going to open the door for him because he'll be going to college. So the trick is, we've got to get these kids on track. We've got to partner with the schools. We've got to partner with the teachers, all the nonprofits, all the volunteers who are here, reading buddies, reading pals. It's going to take everybody, and if we get these children on track, they are resilient. They will learn, and they will succeed, and they will have an opportunity to go forth in life and really make a difference. So we are enthused to be part of this campaign. I know all of our partners are enthused to be part of the campaign, and I thank you for being part of the campaign. Somebody's holding up a poster to me. I'll do one more commercial. If you want to help the campaign for grade level reading financially, September 1st and 2nd is the 24-hour giving challenge. I think a lot of you maybe have heard of that before. If you haven't, it's 24 hours online with your credit card. You can go on www.thegivingchallenge.org and select a nonprofit of your choice to support. But if you want to support, and I encourage you to support all your favorite nonprofits. But then what I encourage you to do is support one more. Support the campaign for grade level reading. And you can do that by selecting United Way. On the line where it says put in your nonprofit, you put in United Way, and your contributions will go to the campaign for grade level reading. We're excited because the Patterson Foundation is matching all of the contributions if you're a new donor to an organization during the online giving challenge. So if you haven't given online to an organization last year, you would be considered a new donor, up to $250. So, you know, if you can give $50, it's going to be matched $50. We also have an extra pool of funds made from United Way and the Manatee Community Foundation, $25,000. We will be matching up to $25,000 all contributions. So get your credit cards out. You will have posters and flyers for you for the September 1st and 2nd Giving Challenge, and do an extra one and support the campaign for grade level reading. Okay, this afternoon, just to highlight, Dennis Stover will be imparting words of wisdom for us about the campaign, and of course we'll be hearing from Beth at the Patterson Foundation, and then our keynote speaker, Ron Fairchild, and you'll really enjoy what he has to say. He's got so much experience. He's the leader of this campaign nationally. And Bronwyn, what's our status on lunch? Any words on lunch?
Our status is lunch is soon. They're getting it set up in the other room over there. Phillip's going to talk for just a couple of minutes, and he'll give you instructions on where and how to get lunch. And don't worry, you will get a break to do your emails, do a few
Okay, then here's Phillip from the United Way.
Thank you, Marilyn. Okay, so other than the invite to today, how many of you know or have heard of Alice? Let's see, hands up all the way. Okay. Charlie? What does Alice stand for? Whoa, yes. So the linkage between Alice and the campaign, it's really hard for me to talk about the campaign without talking about Alice, and vice versa. What we experienced today were Alice families, folks working hard to take care of themselves and their children. Alice families are those of us, and it's many of us actually in this room, not in your roles, are Alice. We're struggling to make ends meet. People in poverty, right? 2. But you don't have to just be in poverty to be Alice and be struggling to make ends meet financially. So the Alice report was a report done to characterize a group of people, many of us, that exist and who are our community. For some of us, we used to refer to the Alice population as the middle class. The Alice report documented on a county-by-county basis in the state of Florida that in Manatee County, for example, 13% of us are poor. That's the federal poverty level and below. Another 30% of us are Alice, asset limited, income constrained, employed. I suggest to you that that's a conservative number of 43% of us at least are struggling to make ends meet financially. And the reason I suggest to you that it's conservative, and I don't mean conservative politically, and I don't mean it pejoratively, and I don't mean it in a positive way. It's a low number, that's what I mean by conservative, because the way we identified who Alice is in our community is we looked at the income that folks have and compared it to a survival budget. And if you could meet the survival budget, you were not Alice. Now, to give you one clue, if you look at the line item in that survival budget for Manatee County for a family of 4 to eat, to buy food, that survival budget number is about $500 and some a month. So think for a second about whether actually a family of 4 could eat on $500 a month. Probably not. The real number is about $1,000. So the survival budget is conservative. So that 30% of us who are Alice is probably a lot larger. And the conclusion to that is that maybe 50, 60, or 70% of us, of the 330,000 of us who live here in Manatee County, are probably struggling to make ends meet financially. That's our children, that's our daycare providers, it may be our teachers, it's all of us at the United Way, it's our parents, it's everybody in retail, it's everybody in hospitality, it's everybody who helps us have a good life. But that is our community. So what we are urging us is to to take into account who we are, that we are Alice. And so when we budget, when we prioritize, when we create policy, we ought to take into account how many of us are Alice. Employers need to take into account that their workforce, that their employees, many of them, maybe most of them, maybe all of them are Alice. And what does that mean? In terms of transportation, getting to work, benefits, childcare on site. So that's our plea, that we can begin to talk about Alice, because the word poor and poverty for some people carries with it a whole set of things that can be obstacles. So I needed to make that pitch. It is now. Do you want me to turn it over to you to give actual instructions? Thank you very much for letting me be a little preachy.